Hi, everyone. We're just giving it a second to let people in here. Thanks for joining us today. Before we begin, if you want to engage with our community of dreamers by sharing one of your dreams in the comments, I invite you to do so. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance Dream Bank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Jenna, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. For those of you who are familiar with Dream Bank, welcome back. And for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and digital experience dedicated to dreamers everywhere. From our daily event series to immersive signature programs, there's something for every dreamer. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and stay motivated. A quick financial disclaimer before I introduce our speaker. American Family Insurance Company SI, its operating companies, nor its agents give tax or financial advice. You should consult a tax or financial advisor for answers to tax and financial planning questions. Now let's shift the focus from DreamBank and myself to the highlight of today's event. It's my honor to introduce our esteemed speaker, Bernadette Joy. Bernadette Joy paid off $300,000 of debt in 3 years and built her first $1 million of net worth in her 30s as a first-generation Filipina-American, the 8th of her father's 9 kids. After being tired of the stale and outdated money advice, she launched Crush Your Money Goals in 2020, a money media company to serve up practical and fun educational content. Since then, she's taught thousands globally simple strategies to pay down debt, save more money, invest with confidence, and pursue financial peace. Welcome, Bernadette. We're delighted to have you with us. The stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I am so honored to be here. I absolutely love the DreamBank team here, and I am really excited to present this. If any of you came to my last presentation, thank you for coming back. If you are new here, welcome. I am Bernadette, as she said, and today's topic is going to be equity in every dollar, and specifically how we can help close the wealth gap for everyone who wants to be wealthy. So first thing, to make sure that we're alive and paying attention and not multitasking, let me know in the chat if you are interested in being wealthy or helping others in your community be wealthy. Give me a yes, give me a affirmation of your choice in the chat. Let me see who is here. So Brenda said yes with exclamations. Joining from Madison, and yes, thank you, Eileen and Margaret. And just to give you some quick background on who I am, so I used to be a corporate HR professional for over a decade, working at several big, large institutions and then working at smaller startups. And then I decided to take the leap into my own financial freedom journey, into my own dream of being wealthy. And I became a debt-free millionaire. I am 39 years old, and I get to be doing the work that I love and presenting topics like this to you because I have the financial freedom to do so. I am also, if you're interested in getting tons of free education around personal finance, specifically as a leader in your community, in your business, in your family, I contribute to Forbes, to CNBC, and CNET. So you can just Google Bernadette Joy and those, and you'll get tons and tons of articles. And I have done a lot of work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space because it is a space that I am really, really passionate about. Even though I'm not in corporate anymore, I get the joy and opportunity to now be the person who delivers those with a fresh perspective. And also, because I don't work for anyone anymore, I get to say what's really on my mind. So today, if you are interested in how we can build community wealth, not just for ourselves, you came to the right place. I'm going to ask actually two things I'm going to ask from you. Number one is we're asking for 1 hour out of your over 100 plus hours this week. And so really asking you to, if you can, not multitask during the session and actively participate in the chat. And then number two is to grab a piece of pen and paper and take some notes, because at the end, I will be asking what you took away from this, and hopefully we can all commit to at least one action item by the time we leave today. Also, I thought this was just fun. This is an article from me this past week. In India, one of the most populous countries in the world, and the article was titled, "I'm incredibly lazy, but still make a lot of money with my easy side hustle. I even paid off this amount in debt." So if you would like to build wealth and not have to work so hard, that's kind of my jam. All right. So today I have one goal for all of us in the room. There's 27 of us in here. And so that means that we have potentially 27 really tangible opportunities to create change in our communities. And that is to build an action plan to upgrade wealth building initiatives to be equitable. And we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between equality and equity, particularly for multicultural and multi-generational communities. Okay. I am going to guess that part of the reason you're here is because you work with, or you live with, or you hang around people who are not exactly like you. And personal finance is indeed personal. So let's figure out how we can make this work for everyone. So let's get our first participation in here in the chat. If you ask your community to evaluate available financial education, are you confident that they would respond with an A+? Yes or no? And if no, what would you rate using our old school, grade system, A+, B-, C? What would you rate the available financial education opportunities that are available to your community right now? If it's not an A+, let's see here. So Peter said a C, a C, a D, a C. Okay, a lot of C's and D's. Nothing. Oh, okay. A-, B+. Let me ask this follow-up question. What do you feel like is missing? What do you feel like is missing? I love that. So Jess said the financial management advisor team for our company retirements provides some great educational series. So at least a B+. That's great. A+. So let's see here. Brenda said community forums to discuss as a group, very expensive, and they don't tell you step-by-step how to do it. The fact that housing affordability, we're in a time where it is crazy. I so agree with that. We do not start teaching our kids, and resources and publicity. The resources are hard to find. Oh my gosh. All of these incredibly accurate. And thank you for sharing those, because that's helpful feedback for us to understand as well as the people who are providing that. So what I would love to say is that is exactly why my company exists. That's exactly why I do what I get to do, because I want to have more available, publicized, well-informed, engaging, non-secretive financial education for anyone who wants it. This is a testimonial from one of my fellow personal finance providers. They have a great podcast called The Price of Avocado Toast for Millennials. And Justin actually gave me this feedback because his wife attended one of my events and said, this changed my life. And that made me so excited about getting to do what I do, because financial opportunity can in fact change people's lives. And the truth is, money is everywhere. Money is actually not scarce, even though we've been taught that it is. Maybe it's by our parents or the education system that money is hard to come by. That's actually not true. Money is abundant. It's available. Time is what's scarce. So anything that we can do to make people's time more valuable and help them solve the wealth gap is better for all of us. So here's what we're going to discuss. I have a framework. It's called Crush, and it's 5 steps. So someone said, we don't get step by step. I'm going to give you very tangible steps today that we can take back to our communities and ask ourselves how we can move towards an A+. And I would recommend for you on your paper to write down CRUSH, and we'll go step by step, and I want you to write down what you take away from it. So let's start off with the C in crush. The C stands for curate. Curate. What I often see people doing as a mistake around creating more financial opportunity is that they're trying to create, reinvent the wheel, versus going out, seeing what already exists, and then curating the best of what we've got, right? I would love to say that DreamBank is a perfect example of an organization that curates well. I am here because they curate well. They said we could just run this financial education program on our own, or we could find someone who's an expert in this and get them to come here and compensate them and have them share their expertise with us instead of reinventing the wheel. Now, there's 3 particular areas where I think we can do a better job of curating in each of our communities. One is, I would love to say, if we can move away from what I like to call random acts of diversity. And so what do I mean by that is having these opportunities for diversity, but they're not well thought out, they're not well planned, they just feel kind of random, just to check the box to say that they did it. Why I love DreamBank so much is because they reached out to me months ago, planned this way far ahead in advance, right? And it wasn't random. They got feedback on what people were looking for, and then they asked, well, what can we do to solve that problem? So number 2 is that, and this is really where I get kind of my buttons pushed with DEI type of stuff, is that it's often focused on the diversity and the inclusion parts of the acronym, but very few education things that I've seen out there are focused on the equity part. Oh, we want someone who's diverse and we want to feel like everyone's included, but is it actually equitable to the people who need these resources the most? And we'll talk more about that. I love that. Cheryl gave us such a great analogy. Equality, everyone gets shoes. Equity, everyone gets shoes that fit. That's exactly right. And the last piece here is to ask ourselves, how are we actually measuring impact? Are we actually curating programs and resources that make tangible impact versus just saying that we did it and not actually seeing what the results are? And so I love that Cheryl already gave us a preview into that. So the way that we look at equality, right, is that each individual or group of people are given the exact same resources, versus equity, which is recognizing that everyone is a different person and everyone may need a different set of resources and giving them exactly what it is they need, right? So let me ask you, let's use some real life examples. I would love to hear from the room. Where is an example where you feel like there's a resource out there that is being given out to people equally, but not equitably? I'd love to hear. Carol said, I feel like there are secrets that wealthy people know that the middle class isn't aware of. Finances are not discussed enough. Even that in of itself, right? A prime example of what y'all said earlier was that, for example, there might be resources out there, but does everyone have equitable ways to learn about them? Different communities learn about resources in different ways. So if it's only on Facebook, for example, right, it's not reaching the other communities that don't want to use Facebook, right? I personally, and here's an example that I see a lot in employer organizations, is that the check the box exercise for financial wellness is often the 401k, right? It's like, oh, well, we offer a 401k, which is great, by the way. If you're in an organization that offers any sort of retirement plan, that's awesome. I'm not discounting that at all. But the truth is, right now in 2024, 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and the average debt is $104,000. And as someone who educates people and talking to the employees of these organizations, they don't understand the 401k plans. They come to me and actually say, like, I actually don't know what I'm invested in. I'm invested up to the match, but I actually don't know how much that is. I don't understand the difference between a traditional and a Roth. Right? And so even if we're offering those, are they being offered equally or equitably? And that's something that we can really look at. And so one of the things that I want us to consider is what can we do as community leaders to be able to look at our existing resources, curate the best of what we've got, and double down on those instead. So instead of having 100 different resources, maybe we offer 5 resources, but we do them so well. For example, like if we're at a company, do we try to aim for a higher level of participation? Do we aim for a higher amount being contributed into it? Do we offer more education resources rather than just once a year from the guy at the 401k company who just brings in donuts, right? I'm saying this as a former HR professional. What can we do to better the existing programs and really curate them down? So for example, for me, I offer education programs just teaching people how to really understand their 401k in the most layman terms that anyone can understand, whether you're a $15 an hour employee or you're the CEO of the company. And so that takes me into the R in Crush. The R stands for reverse into independence. Reverse into independence. So what do I mean by that? We need to think about the end in mind. Why I love partnering with DreamBank so much is because the goal here is to help people reach their dreams. And I'm going to tell you, people's dreams are not a 401k, right? People's dreams are what they will do with the money in the 401k. And here are some trends that I've seen personally. I'd love to hear from y'all what you've been seeing in terms of trends in your own community. Number one, I've seen that COVID has really leveled up people's life goals. I don't know if any of y'all have gone through this personally, but COVID made me realize, wow, there is so much more in life I want to do. There are so many dreams that I have not yet pursued. The way that I've been operating before COVID and after COVID, my perspective is very different, right? Number two, on the other hand, I have also gotten a lot of feedback that people really feel like financial freedom feels farther away because inflation, right? Because layoffs, because interest rates, because unaffordable housing, right? And as a response to that, I have seen a huge uptick in some of these movements, particularly around FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. So I see a lot of folks are saying, you know what, I want to figure out how to reach my dreams faster. So what's a way I can do that? I might join this FIRE movement, which essentially says save up a bunch of money as quickly as possible so that you can go and do whatever it is that you want to do. I've also seen the rise of maximalism, which is the opposite of minimalism. I don't know if any of y'all have felt this. Did y'all feel like after COVID, you're like, let me buy all the things because life is short. And a lot of people who are in minimalist apartments or minimalist places during COVID were like, wow, this is really like all the white and all the gray. It's making me crazy. And then I don't know if y'all have heard of this trend this year. Loud budgeting has been very popular with the younger generations, where essentially they're okay going to their friends and saying, hey, friend, I can't afford to do that right now because I'm trying to save my money. Hey, friend, no, I can't have brunch with you today. Let's go take a walk instead because I'm trying to save money. There's been this shift with the younger generations that they're not afraid to talk about finances as much as some of the older generations now, which I think we can all learn from. And so one thing I want you to ask yourself and ask your community members, whether it's within your employer, whether it's within your faith-based organization, whether it's within your cultural community, simply ask people, what do they need right now? That's the action item. Ask 5 people that you really care about right now. What do they need right now in order to help build wealth? So I would love to hear right now, what do you think are some things, what do you need right now? What would be really helpful to you right now to help you build wealth? What resource would you want to see that maybe you don't have as much access to or you don't think is well done right now? So Stacia, solutions to invest, but you need a large amount of money, which most people don't have an extra 10K, for example, to invest. That's a great example. What are some ways that I can learn how to invest at a smaller increment amounts that can help me build the habits? I love that someone said here, we have been trying to make it easier for people to roll over their 401k when they leave a company to go to another. Absolutely. Rolling over a 401k is one of the biggest headaches I've ever had in my entire life. Have any of you tried to roll over a 401k before? They will literally take your thousands of dollars and send you a physical check in the mail. And you just have to wait for the physical check of thousands of dollars of your hard-earned money to show up in the mail and hope that it arrives in the right place so that you can then take that check and mail it to someone else. It's crazy. So let's see, info, education about managing retirement money. Yes. Places to get better interest in a savings account. I'll tell you, high yield savings account. If you don't know what that is so many people don't know what a basic high yield savings account is or what a certificate of deposit is, a CD. Just those two education pieces, right? So many of my clients don't even know about that. I need a pay raise, but we have not had a raise in 3 years. So yeah, great example. Who is advocating for equitable compensation within your organization? These are all great examples. And the fact that y'all are being so, being so transparent about it, these are the kinds of conversations that we're wanting to have. And I'm so grateful that DreamBank gives us an opportunity and a space to do that. Because a lot of us don't have a space like this to talk about it. So the way that I want you to think about this is if you want to retain the people in the community that you're in. So think about whether it's your faith-based organization or your employer or your community. If you want people to stay and be happy, and then you need to increase their engagement. But you know what is the fastest way to help people increase their engagement is helping them figure out how to build wealth. And I say that because if you have to choose between a webinar, let's say, about how to grow your work skills, or a webinar about how to make more money tangibly, which one are you probably going to pick? People are very motivated by anything that will help them build wealth. So the ways that you can think about how to help people build wealth will absolutely increase engagement within your environment. Now, here's the mental switch I'm asking everyone to think about starting today, very tangibly. I want us, all of us in this room, to stop settling for literacy and instead aim for financial independence. Let me ask in the chat, what do you think is the difference between independence versus literacy? When I say financial independence versus financial literacy. Lizelle said, people are finding money with the money they're already earning. Absolutely, right? People always want to make more money, but it's like, well, are we making the best use of the money we already have? So Peter, I love this. I'm assuming you're saying that independence is more active and literacy is more passive. Absolutely, right? Independence is actually getting people to activate, to make actions, to make choices, versus literacy is saying, oh, the act of learning was great, but what is knowledge if you didn't actually do anything with it? Independence means enough money to do what I want. Literacy is the knowledge I hold about what to do with my money, right? That's a huge difference. Jess, thank you for that. That's a huge difference. Independence means I get to do what I want, right? Literacy is just knowing what I want, but doesn't necessarily mean that you got it. And Lori said, literacy refers to having knowledge. Independence can refer to the application. That's so good, right? So the way that I like to think about this, when I talk about independence, what I mean about becoming financially independent means that I have my reality meeting where my destiny is. Success to me, both financially and every other sense of the word, is when my reality reflects my destiny. Meaning, I live exactly the life that I want to live. It doesn't mean that I have to be balling out on a yacht, right? Or like going to the Met Gala, right? It means that I get to show up in incredible rooms like the room that we're in today. And I'm here completely by choice, right? So what can we do to shift our mindset? Let me ask you that question. It's a real question. What would it require for us to shift the mindset of our communities to go to independence and not just settling for literacy? What would actually help us move the needle on that? So Cheryl said, independence comes from implementing literacy, right? That's a great point. Literacy does come first, but where we see a lot of organizations stopping is at literacy and saying, okay, yeah, we taught them what to do. Whether or not they did it or not is another story. So one way that we can actually create that movement towards independence is accountability. Asking people, what did you learn? Did you do it? Do you need more help? Right? Peter said small steps, right? What are some small steps? Sometimes we give people too much. Too much. So today, for example, I could say, all right, everyone solve the wealth gap. Here you go. Versus I'm asking you to take small steps today. The first small step was look at what you already have and curate it. Don't create anything new. Just look at what you already have and make it better. Right? Then the second step I'm asking you today is to reverse into independence. Just start thinking about and asking your community, what does independence mean to them? Maybe they're already literate, but they haven't implemented. I love this. Lori said, programs to help us create the habits needed to build wealth, routinely investing small amounts. It's a great example. So total selfish plug here. It just happens to be that I have this right next to me. This was not planned, but I am writing a book and it's coming out in December. And when we looked at the market of what there's out there for personal finance, there were very few books that were about habits. It was all about literacy. It was all about teaching people what they should know versus what they should do. And so interestingly, my publisher, and when they came to me first, they said they wanted me to write 100 habits. And I said, ain't nobody gonna implement 100 habits. That's too much. So I convinced them that we really needed to get down to 25 habits. And of that, I expect people, if they picked 5 of the habits over the course of the next couple of years, they would be infinitely better off than they were today. That's what we were talking about when Peter said small steps and helping us to build habits, like Lori said. So that leads us into the U in Crush, which is to understand. And here's a fun fact. There are actually 6 steps to understanding. Like the actual process of understanding something requires 6 steps, and they're outlined here. Perception is first, then attention, then comprehension, then analysis, then synthesis, then evaluation. But most programs, most resources given to communities, and particularly underserved communities, they usually stop at the first 2. Perception and attention. That's why they're highlighted in red here. Have we moved past those first 2 and really got into the next steps in understanding? So let me give you some high-level pieces of information here that can get us into this next level beyond just perception and attention. We have perception and attention because the perception was you saw this event today, and the attention was that you showed up. But now are we working towards understanding? So for example, only 39% of Americans can afford a $1,000 unexpected expense. If something were to happen, like their car were to break down, they would be in a big jam. The vast majority of people would be completely turned upside down by one $1,000 event. This is one that kind of boils my blood because we've got a lot of work to do, my friends. Is a lot of people know about the wage gap, which is about 82 cents to the dollar for women versus men. But the wealth gap is 32 cents to every dollar owned by women in the US. That means that when women are getting ready to retire, they have 32 cents to the dollar of what men have. But I promise you, our needs are not a third of what men need. And actually, they're longer, they're bigger. Women tend to live longer, right? There's a lot of other types of things like feminine hygiene and health that we have to also fund, right? We also have a lot of lost wages because we're often the caregivers, not just for kids, but for our parents, right? So why I'm so passionate about getting this understanding here is that a workshop that is not equitable to women are ones that assume that we are starting off at the same point as men in terms of building wealth. The facts are showing that we're not. We're actually have a big gap to close. During the pandemic, 863,000 women left the workforce compared to 168,000 of men, which goes to show you, right, that the burden on closing that wealth gap gets even bigger when we're not producing the income that we need to. And then when we talk about racial disparities, Black families in particular have 1/10 of the net worth of a typical white family. Those are statistics. These are not stories that are made up. These are what the data is telling us. So now that we have the attention, right, and now that we've perceived it, are we moving into comprehending why is that happening, right? Are we going into analyzing what the data is telling us? And then are we actually taking that and providing solutions? So I would love to implore all of you to think about that today, of saying, okay, now that I know that there's a problem, now that I've paid attention to the problem, what can I do to increase my understanding of that? So let me ask you in the chat, what's one way that you think you could increase your understanding beyond this presentation today? After we leave this presentation today, what is one little step, like Peter said, that could help each of us move towards better understanding? I'll give you an example while I'm waiting for those in the chat. Today, yesterday and the day before, I was at a conference, 2 days of a conference where it was specifically for Black and brown entrepreneurs. And I sat at the conference and I took copious notes and worked on understanding what is the data telling us here and what are the real life experiences that our people are having, and asking questions. I asked questions to the people around me and said, well, why do you think that's happening? Where do you think the root cause is? How do you feel about that? Right? So I love this. Peter said a support group. Absolutely. Can we find a smaller subset of people who are willing to work together on this? I love that Michelle said question mark. Absolutely. Just talk to other people. Have dialogue. Is there someone in your life, in your immediate community, that you know is having a hard time with money? And simply asking them, well, how are you? How are you doing? Is there support that you need? Faye said, absolutely research. I love it. Faye is probably the data nerd like me. Where else can I go do research? One of the reasons that I contribute to Forbes and CNET is because I basically consider them my mini PhDs. I get to, for a living, get paid to research these topics and then share what I learned with other people. And then Karen said, keep with people, groups of like-minded persons, absolutely, and seek more education. So can you turn going to programs like today into a habit? Are you at least once a quarter or once a month going to learn about something that maybe you didn't learn about before? I love this quotation. May is AAPI month, so Asian American and Pacific Islander month. And so I get a lot of requests during the month of May because I'm first generation Filipino. And I recently spoke at TIAA, which is one of the biggest retirement providers in the country. So it was a little bit odd to me when they asked me to speak about money and finances, because I was thinking, like, don't you have people internally who can do this for you? Why would you be asking me? And the response I got from them was that they said they wanted to hear from a real person who's been there, done that, not an advisor, someone who's actually gone through that experience themselves and can relate that experience. And particularly for Asian Americans, there's a lot of generational trauma that is attached to personal finance. And so I love this because they had over 550 people come to this presentation. They said it was the most people that showed up for the presentation. And the people in their organization said that they felt heard and seen and acknowledged, right? So that gets us to the S. The S in Crush stands for spend on vetted resources. Spend on vetted resources. If we want to make change, I would love to say it would be for free, but change costs. And usually it will be in the form of time or dollars or energy. But the best resources that we can curate will probably take a little bit of all three. And often I talk to organizations who say they want to make change, but there's no budget for it. And so I'm asking you today, in the organizations that you're in, where can we allocate real dollars towards vetted resources to help us close the financial wealth gaps? So specifically, if you're an employer looking at your benefits and employee wellness budget, if you are, in the HR organizations or the leadership organizations or community engagement, looking at your retention budgets or looking at your community engagement or event budgets, and of course, obviously, the DEI budgets, that's where it should be. What's been interesting is that I have, working with various organizations, have found budget in different departments. Because truth be told, what I do for a living with money education hits every department. It's just a matter of where we can find that money. But the difference I'm asking is look at vetted resources. And this is real. I'll tell you kind of a real story that happened to me very recently. So I national speakers. And I recently wrote an article that went viral on Forbes, teaching people, here's the steps that you can start to start a side hustle around becoming a paid speaker. And my recommendation was for people to start out at $500 to start speaking engagements, and then ramp up from there as you become more seasoned and more experienced. But what I often found is that there's a lot of women in particular and communities of color who are sharing tons of knowledge and not getting compensated for that. And so the thought was to encourage people to start out with $500, even though it might not be a ton of money for some people. It's better than starting out at zero. What was super interesting about this article was that I posted it on LinkedIn and I got a ton of backlash from existing seasoned speakers, self-referred seasoned speakers, who basically said to me, a woman of color, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're not a seasoned speaker, and you are threatening our livelihood. And I could see where that was coming from, because it was coming from a place of fear, right? And here are some real examples of other paid speakers who refer to themselves as DEI experts, but were unwilling to be inclusive in their own industry, right? And as a budding entrepreneur, as a woman of color, also as just a recovering people pleaser, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, did I do something wrong? What should I have done differently? Should I not have posted that article? Right? But luckily for me, here are other points of feedback that I got from the same article. Other women who said, thank you so much for posting what you shared and for not gatekeeping this information and encouraging us to ask for payment for our expertise and our knowledge, because it's something I've been scared to do. And so instead of backing down, you know what I did instead? I doubled down. So I wrote another article about even more specific, tangible steps that anyone can do to start becoming a paid speaker. I hosted a workshop for women to be able to learn how to become a great speaker and get paid for it. The workshop did so well that we're hosting another one. And so I'm sure many of you have felt at some point or another, if you want to see change in your community, it's likely that you're going to see some pushback. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means that you're actually probably going in the right direction, but it's going to be, like Cheryl said, it's going to be highly uncomfortable. But what I'm asking as leaders is, one way that you can really contribute into this is offering fair payment for new and fresh perspectives. I'm going to share, for example, this person here, Athena, She is one of the most passionate people I've ever met in personal finance. And you would think we do very similar types of things, that I would consider her my competition. But actually, anytime that I see an opportunity for her that I think is going to be a great opportunity for her to make money, for her to educate people, I will share that opportunity. I won't hoard it for myself. But she often struggled with asking for payments. And she shares in her story that she's, not only coming from a Latina background, also from a very financially unstable background growing up, but she has also dealt with many mental health issues. And she has a story that I don't have. And for us to be able to not only hear those stories, but then also spend money so that those people can continue to share their expertise and knowledge with us is so important. So I'm going to ask you today, right? Is there any sort of budget that we can allocate specifically towards paying vetted experts to help us? So what should you look for when you're looking for a vetted expert? Number one is, when you talk to this expert, you should ask them for clear, tangible participant results. What can you show me that the expertise that you're providing actually creates change? That's why even in this presentation, I shared with you some of the examples of testimonials that I've gotten from past speaking engagements. This is not my first rodeo. I've done this many times before. You also want to find experts who have data-backed methodologies, who are not just focused on finances, but I'm really going to strongly encourage you to find people who also care about mental health and use psychological principles as well. Because we all know that money is not just about the math. There's a lot of mental health that incorporates into our money plans. So for me, as an example, I have a master's in business, I have a bachelor's in business, but I also have a degree in psychology. And of the 3 degrees, you know which one is the most valuable in teaching personal finance? It's the psychology degree. And so let's not settle for just the financial advisors who tell us, oh, just put in, $10,000 a year for the next 30 years and you'll become a millionaire. Like, that's not as helpful as saying, hey, what are you going through right now? How are you feeling about it? What can we do in your money plan to help you move forward and not lose sleep at night? Of course, you want to check that the curriculum is tested and proven. One of my challenges as someone who is first and foremost a financial educator, but I also happen to create content, is there are a lot of creators who have really great intentions, but they haven't tested their curriculum. So the common examples I see a lot going on right now is that there are people who are YouTubers or podcasters or bloggers, right, who try to diversify their revenue streams, and they say, well, I'll just build a course, right? And then they've never tested the course, and they don't know if it actually works, and they don't have any real students, and they're charging this money for this curriculum. That being a great YouTuber is different than being a great facilitator, right? So when you are going for these resources, it's okay for you to ask them, well, how many students have come through your programs? What are their results? Have you actually tested it out? For me, in my own team, I have a curriculum designer on my team, someone who has a master's degree in how to create curriculum that is actually proven and actually tests well with adult learning theory. And then, if possible, having someone who is recognized as a diverse expert. And it doesn't have to be just race. I want to be very clear about that. I know a lot of great financial experts who are excellent at teaching about neurodiversity, right? I know a lot of great experts who talk about multi-generational diversity. I know a lot of experts who talk about dealing with different types of physical ailments and personal finance. So let's broaden out our idea of beyond just racially diverse. There's so many other aspects that really influence our financial plans that are beyond just, color. And so let's talk about the last piece of this, which I've sort of alluded to. The H in CRUSH stands for help heal. Heal. I am a strong believer. Let me ask this question in the chat. This is what we might get a little divisive here. Do you think money can buy happiness? Yes or no? Can money buy happiness? Michelle said no. Peter said no. Jess said a smidge. I haven't heard the word smidge in a long time, so I really appreciate the use of, I'm going to use smidge today. Sometimes, but it can buy you a boat. Money can buy the security I need to feel happy. Here is where, I go back and forth about it. Sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no, but I can tell you from both personal experience and the experience of many of my students that money may not be able to buy you happiness, but money is a great tool at helping you heal. And in my programs, I teach about healing money wounds specifically. So money wound to me is basically anything that makes you afraid to make different money choices in the future because of something that might have happened to you in the past. So I would love to hear, if you don't mind sharing, what's a money wound that you might have experienced in the past that has influenced the way you make choices now? I'll tell you some of mine while I'm waiting for them in the chat. So again, I'm first generation Filipino-American. I'm the 8th of my dad's 9 kids. So there's definitely a money wound there about the rhetoric in my household of like, there's just never enough money. I definitely have a scarcity mindset that even today, even though I'm a debt-free millionaire, I'm still working through. I have the money wound of I've not been laid off. And by the way, if you've ever been laid off, that is absolutely a money wound. But I was an HR professional during the 2008 financial crisis in New York City in financial services. So I was the person who was flying around to different offices as a 20-something-year-old. If you've ever seen the movie Up in the Air, I was that. I was Anna Kendrick. I was the person in that movie, except me. And I had the money wound of going around to these different offices and telling people they didn't have a job anymore and seeing the fear on their faces. If you ever had someone who's been sick, who's passed away, who, if you're a caregiver now and you're trying to figure out how to manage your own life or manage your own children and also take care of someone else generationally in your family, that's something that I see a lot of, right? What are some money wounds that you've seen here? So medical expenses, destitution, being in survival mode, growing up poor, being a woman has built-in money wounds, absolutely. Attorney costs, right? Like difference in pay between my mom and dad, yes. Growing up in poverty, watching bankruptcy, being rehomed. So what I don't like about a lot of personal finance programs is that there's a lot of shaming and guilting in them sometimes. A lot of personal finance programs, and absolutely, I 100% believe in personal accountability. Everyone is responsible for their own lives and success. But we cannot discount that many people, like people in this room, the reason they're not able to make money choices is not because they're stupid. It's not because we're dumb. It's not because we're irresponsible. It's not because we're not capable. It's because something happened to us in the past that makes it difficult. Right? And so I share this often because people will look at me on the internet. If you've seen me on the internet, it's like, wow, she's crushing it. She's a debt-free millionaire. She owns this business. She's going to all these conferences and speaking, and she seems like she knows exactly what she's doing. But what a lot of people don't know is that I come from a very complicated family. My father passed away during the pandemic. And then this past year, one of the women who raised me, I call her my no drama mama. She passed away this past year, and the family couldn't afford her funeral. She's not related to me by blood. She's one of the, like in Filipinos, like everyone's your aunt, everyone's your family. And I found out at the funeral that the family was having trouble paying for the funeral. And so there are a lot of things that are not being addressed in personal finance, and we need to have a better connection between the math and the mental health, and specifically around addressing and acknowledging the money wound. So thank you. Margaret, thank you for sharing about your parents' divorce. Like Ivy, thank you for sharing that you were independent since 16, right? Karen, just not having enough money to pay your everyday bills is a money wound. So even just being in this space, and again, thank you to DreamBank for offering this space. Like, how often are we in a safe space to say, hey, I was hurt by this in the past? And so something I really want you to all consider as the leaders in your communities and in your organizations, one of the best ways that you can help the other people around you is to acknowledge your own money wounds. Period. I'm getting a little bit teary because, you know, there's the fact that we just met and that y'all shared some deeply personal stuff with me. Like, I'm very, very grateful for that. And if you can be that type of person to create that space in your environment, asking people to say, well, you know, why? When they say, I feel like I don't have enough money and I'm scared to invest. I'm scared to pay down my debt. I'm scared to save money. I'm scared to ask for that raise. Even just asking that next question, well, why? You might find out it's because of a money wound, not because they don't want to. So just to recap what we've talked about, and let's open it up for a couple of minutes of questions here, because I love this group. Sounds amazing. Y'all sound like very genuinely beautiful human beings. Here's what we talked about today. The 5 steps of crush. So 1, can you look at your existing resources and curate and focus on the few that actually can move the needle forward and improve upon the few versus trying to spread out too thin? On R, can you personally start shifting from literacy and focusing on independence instead? And can you go out to your communities and ask them, have the conversation with them? What do they need to build independence versus just being literate? And understanding, can you make it a habit to go to opportunities like this on a monthly or a quarterly basis, if monthly is too much, even 4 times a year, to go beyond just perception and attention and to go to actually comprehension and evaluation and deepen your understanding of what's happening? Are you willing to spend money on bringing in vetted experts? Actual dollars, right? And, you know, part of the reason I also really implore you on this piece is because when there is money being exchanged, the commitment level is just that much higher. The commitment level is just that much higher. And then H, on healing money wounds. Are you the type of leader who creates a safe space to let people share what their money wounds are? And then personally for you, is there a money wound that you would like to focus on in the next couple of months on healing? And so I'd love to hear in the chat, out of these 5 steps, what is one thing that you think you can commit to after today's conversation? Curating, reversing, understanding, spending, healing. If you said nothing else but say, you know what, today I'm going to work on healing my own my own money wound, that is such hard work. And it may take some time, but then you will be a better leader for it. And one of the things that I love to say in Crush Your Money Goals is that I train leaders, not followers. This is why I don't consider myself a content creator. Even though I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, I have all the content type things. I'm not looking for followers. I want leaders, right? Leaders are the people who create opportunities. Followers are just the people who wait for them. So are you waiting or are you creating? What opportunities can you create versus just waiting for them to arrive, right? So let's see here. And part of this is the accountability, right? So let's see here. This is so deep but needed. Thank you. Curating, most definitely. So Samantha, I'm gonna ask, and then Lizelle, who also said curate. I'd love to hear specifically what's a resource that you think you can better curate? Or on the opposite side, is there resources that you said, you know what, we're not going to invest in them anymore because they're not working? Part of curating is getting rid of the clutter, right? So is there something that's cluttery that you can remove? I'd love to hear, because we can share some best practices. Faye said, I'm going to healing money wounds. I would just ask Faye, you don't have to share, but is it your own money wound, or are you going to look at helping others share their money wounds? I'd love to hear. Jess said, I'm really working on the money wound and the bias I have towards trust fund babies. Let me tell you something. There is a lot of conversation around the Gen Z people love to call them Nepo babies. Have you heard this? Nepo, basically like nepotism babies, people who don't have to like work a day in their life. And yes, we all have a little bit of bias against them, but they have their own set of problems. And like we just said in this room, money, a lot of people believe money can't buy happiness. So coming to a level of understanding of people, regardless of their background, regardless of they're poor or they're rich, is such a great, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's such a great money wound to work on. I'm going to implement some of my own literacy and also heal my own money wounds. More active approach to all my interactions. Margaret said reverse. Peter said research support options. And then facing my own money wound. I love this. So speaking of, and then we'll open up for questions. If you're looking for more resources, I would love for you to scan this QR code. This QR code goes to my free guide. You also see the website here. It's crushyourmoneygoals.com/free guide. And I give you 30 of my best resources to start off with. So there, it helps you, Peter and others. To start off with. In there, I share some of my favorite podcasts that I think are really beneficial, all hosted by women of color. I share my 5 favorite books that have changed my life. I share 5 particular articles that are quick reads if you're not committed to a podcast or a book. I also share my 5 best tools, money tools that I use personally. And I also share 5 of my best business tools to help scale a business. And so all of that is in the money guide, and that's a great place to start. Also, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. If you are on LinkedIn, I love connecting with leaders who show up to events like this. And then if you have any particular questions, you can feel free to email me at hello@crushyourmoneygoals.com about anything. If you scan the QR code, you'll also be added to my newsletter where I share other opportunities like this. So for example, this opportunity was featured in my last newsletter for people to show up to this. And so you may find other opportunities to attend events in my newsletter. So that can help you with that. All right. Sure, I can put the link in the chat. So now we'll open it up to questions. We have a few minutes. Are there any questions that I can help answer? And we'll get some help on moderating those. I will put that in the chat. Sure.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. We have about probably time for maybe 2 or 3 questions. So feel free to drop those in the chat before we wrap up.
Thank you. So Ivy said, thank you. I'm just going to read some comments here. Karen said, this was very informative presentation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for showing up. Y'all are the real heroes. Everyone's busy. You're a bunch of money nerds. Who shows up to a money conversation in the middle of the workday, right? And also, by the way, I'm happy to answer any questions about anything related to money, not just what we talked about today. So if you're like, how did you become a debt-free millionaire? I mean, I can't answer it in like 30 seconds, but I can give you a high-level overview.
Bernadette, one question we always love to ask our speakers is, what is next for you and kind of the next step on your dream pursuit, something that you're pursuing?
So I was saying this a little earlier of going back to what I presented earlier about having these naysayers in the speaking world. I've gone to a lot of conferences where either the speaking slate is not as diverse as I would hope. Again, not just racially, but like generationally and neurodivergence as neurodiversity as well. I have a lot of clients who are dealing with ADHD type of stuff, and there's not a lot of speakers who address that well. And so the dream that I have right now is to be able to build a great slate of so this sounds like a lot. I'm getting nervous to say it because it is really a big dream of mine. I want to have a slate of 100 very well trained speakers who are really putting out amazing, great, engaging content. And some of it is in the content itself, like how can we improve the content that's being out there, but a lot of it is in the delivery. So I hope that y'all found this interesting, even though it's a webinar. I I try to bring a certain level of energy to these things, but I don't know, y'all, I'm sure y'all have been to meetings where like, this could have been an email. Like, why are we here? And so my dream is to get rid of all meetings that could have been an email.
Oh my gosh. Well, in all seriousness, no, I really appreciate you sharing your dream. That is pretty amazing. And, you know, DreamBank will be alongside with you through that dream journey. So we're always here for you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, but thank you, Bernadette, so much for sharing your time, insights, and story with us today. Every step of Crush really resonated with me, but especially when you talked about the mindset shift from literacy to independence. And I'm sure many of us found it equally enlightening. To everyone who tuned in, we're grateful for your participation. It's through your engagement that we continue to learn, grow, and chase our dreams together. Remember, you can discover more about our upcoming DreamBank events and access content crafted to inspire and support your aspirations on our website. And if you're interested in revisiting this event or exploring past ones, our YouTube channel is the place to be. But I've truly enjoyed learning with all of you today, and I'm excited about the opportunity to connect again at our next DreamBank event. So thank you so much and take care.
Bye, everybody.